Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are all doing well. And today, my friends, we're back with the Warriors of Chaos vs. Dwarf Showdown. So it is going to be the Warp Chicken facing off against Belagar Ironhammer, the true king of Karakay Peaks. And let's go ahead and break down this army. So as far as the Air Force go, we do have two Exalted Heroes on Manticores. Now, the reason why you get the Exalted Heroes instead of the basic Manticores, although they do cost a little bit more, they do not rampage. So that's one of the big issues with Feral Manticores in this matchup, is that though they are quite good at dealing with gyrocopters and, sniping targets, getting into the back line, if they take a little bit of damage, they rampage, Slayers catch them, they kill them, game over. So double Exalted Champion here, Exalted Hero up on the Manticores, backed up by triple Marauder Horsemen, and this is just pretty much every time you play a good Dwarf player, or a Dwarf player in general. It could be on ladder, in a tournament, any circumstance. Today we're playing the Great Mountain King himself, Imais. You need to respect the gyrocopters, because if you don't, you're just straight up going to lose the matchup. So in this case, we have 3 horsemen and 2 Exalted Heroes, which is more than enough, in my opinion, to deal with the Penta gyrocopter builds, which occasionally do come out as a bit of a surprise. Aside from that, we got Chaos Warrior Great Weapons, Chaos Marauder Great Weapons, and that's pretty much our entire ground core, just an alternating sequence of Chaos Warriors, which we have 3 of, and then 3 Chaos Marauders with Great Weapons. So aside from that, we got 2 Chaos Chariots on the wings. I honestly prefer them as opposed to the Gorby's Chariots, just from a price point. I mean, obviously, if you have infinite funds, the Gorby's Chariot will be better against Dwarves, but in a multiplayer situation, cost efficiency is very important, so basic Chaos Chariots really are the way. Warp Chicken is also, he's my boy in this matchup. I like him a little bit more than Sigvald. I feel like a lot of people do expect Sigvald nowadays, and Warp Chicken can really punish Dwarven boxes. So if you do face like a Haggard Gyrocopter box, where they have 5 gyros and then a box of elite units and characters, you can just win the game with him, and he does a lot of work. So I really love Imai's build here. He does have a front battle line of hammers. It looks like there's going to be 4 in total, and I saw this, I was like, oh shit, my Chaos Warriors actually cannot beat them. So we're going to have to work him down the old-fashioned way. We got Belagar. We got blasting charges here in the secondary with the Ekron's Miners, double Thunderers, triple cannon, each of which is going to be guarded by either a Slayer or a Dwarf Warrior with a great weapon. Certainly a very cool build. And in terms of how it would deal with Sigvald, Sigvald can be a problem for a lot of builds, but I think the Dwarven Hammer teams probably would be enough DPS, especially with 4 of them in conjunction with the guns, to do some very, very heavy lifting. So cannon fire is going off pretty solid over here, blasting a couple Marauder Horsemen. I've lost a fair amount of models right now, and you can see I accidentally bunch up here because I was giving them a group moving order. So you can see right now I do kind of split them all up in a couple different directions to try and remedy that problem, and we'll see how they end up doing here in the end. So Warp Chicken moving in. I'm kind of eyeing this flank a little bit. There was some juiciness. Obviously, the Dwarves do have a better front line, which is something you don't hear terribly often. Oftentimes, it's like Longbeards and holding units rather than like DPS units. So this certainly puts a bit of a twist on things. So what I'm going to do is not give a full engagement. I'll just be doing a partial engagement up here on the high ground, taking Warp Chicken down and trying to overload this flank a little bit. So the Chariot getting hammered by the cannons, unfortunate for me. Not a whole lot I can do. I can juke a little bit, but a little bit sloppy there. So I saw the guns kind of pushed up, a little bit overextended. So KFC Man's going to be jumping in there, trying to give him a little bit of Zinch lovin'. And now as far as damage, it shouldn't be too much, but yeah, 200 damage isn't bad. The guns are shut down, and now is my opportunity. Also, I did see the Hammerers moving out, so I'm going to be attacking them with the infantry here, pulling the Chaos Marauders in with great weapons to fight them. Chariots will be hammering in, and Chariots will do some okay damage. You can see on impact, we do a couple hundred damage. It does kind of blunt their charge a little bit. Chaos Marauders obviously will get massacred here, but with the Chariots harassing and perhaps some additional pressure we can bring in, maybe it will go okay. On top of that, the 2 Exalted Heroes moving in, and Chaos Warriors will lose to Hammer Squads 1v1, but with 2 Exalted Heroes of Chaos here just going ham on their Manticores, we should be able to pretty easily win this engagement. So just trying to isolate these elite units and really focus them down where they're a little bit unsupported. On the other side of the battlefield, pretty much just a massacre. My Marauder Horsemen tried to harass the flanks, but they're getting hit with cannons and gunfire. Mainly, they're just a distraction, and you can see I did rotate away. Final Transmutation going down here, which does hit the cannon. It hits the Slayers and the Thunderers, which are able to get out of that for the most part, but it does push them back out of the aura range, which allows me to come in and basically get a freebie on this cannon. So the cannon will be paying the ultimate troll toll here as we move in and run over the crews. Over here in the front, you can see we do break that 1 hammer team just about. Actually, they're holding at 26 leadership. But now we're going to be coming in, layering on top of the Dwarf Warriors with the rear charge from Chariots coming in. And the Exalted Heroes were able to break through the middle with the Chaos Warriors. And are now moving into the back line, going to try and shut down basically the threats to themselves, right? The only thing that can really deal with them efficiently. Slayers can in sustained combat, but, the gun units here and the cannons and all that stuff really is going to be, pretty important targets to take out. So we do break those Thunder teams right here. Bounce Fire is pretty even. Chaos has gotten some good value. Excuse me, the Dwarves have. on the other side. My Marauder Horsemen have been buttered up pretty good. Obviously some nice blasting charge play going down to the Marauders. Marauders really hate getting hit with blasting charges, but Chaos Marauder Great Weapons definitely pretty cost effective here. Really good melee attack for their price point, and also do have 30 weapons free. But they are getting blasted into the Shadow Realm for sure. Double Manticores going after the gun units, and now we're using our very tattered horsemen, the Marauder Horsemen throwing axes, to go after the Thunders and the Cannon Crews and try and chase off those high value units. So breaking that flank was quite big. We still have a lot of infantry because one of the few times Chaos Infantry, which are very slow, can kite is against Dwarves. Dwarvish Infantry are just as slow for the most part. Their heavier infantry do have 28 speed, so we are able to kind of juke back and forth. Chariots moving in, sandwiching here with Chaos Marauder Great Weapons, who are piling into the back of the Dowie forces. My Chariots do get a little bit pinned in, so Yumai's here might be able to get some decent value. And now the two Manticores are jumping on top of the Thunder teams, while the Slayers are distracted with the Chariots, really making a huge effort to get rid of the weapons teams here for the Dowie. Horsemen in the back, chasing down the Cannon Crews, might be able to get them all off on their own. Always useful to have a couple Horseman pieces. Balance of Power does come into my favor, but though it looks like it didn't really feel like it. There were still a lot of hammer teams on the battlefield. The Lord is still going strong, although Belegar is just brought as a cost-effective Lord here. He's not really going to be a world beater or a carry, and he will lose. If he fights Chaos Warrior Great Weapons like this whole unit by himself, he will eventually lose this fight. Chaos Warrior Great Weapons have great AP and probably could grind him down here. I'd be really surprised if he was able to win it. So something I'm kind of holding in the back pocket. I saw that he had a lot of elite infantry, so I'm basically holding one more final transmutation here. I really know that it's going to be kind of essential, especially since Dwarves in the late game will pretty much always, if they get their backline compromised, they're always going to be forming up like a Death Star or like a big mobile blob to stay together. Otherwise, if they don't, it's a losing situation because the Exalted Heroes can just pick them apart when they're alone. And the Exalted Heroes, I have to say, have been the hardcore MVPs this game. They've been doing great work taking out the hammer teams. Value accrued so far, probably not too crazy, up to 615, but it's not bad. They cost 1100, and as long as they're still healthy and functional, you can't really just measure their success only by the gold they accrue, right? There's disruption, there's terror routes, they're just breaking certain positions, even if they don't do a ton of damage. There's a lot of variables like that. So potential opportunity here for final transmutation. We do get these Slayers, as well as the Dwarf Warrior Great Weapons. Looks like there's 70 of these bad boys moving in to help out the hammer teams while the Exalted Heroes just kind of keep moving about. One of my Exalted Heroes did get a good hammer in for sure. He's at 34 melee defense, obviously, so the hammer teams with their 46 melee attack and good solid general AP values actually can add up and do some okay damage. Really nice play here by Yumai's as well. He gets his Great Cannon back online. I don't know how he did that, but he was able to get these bad boys back from a route. I thought they were pretty close to the edge of the map, but he does get them back. Very smooth stuff. So I immediately realized, I'm like, oh shit, I need to take that out. Over here, Yumai's does also pull in some Dwarven Miner units here, the Ekran's Miners. Pretty good combat stats on these bad boys. Man, Ekran's Miners have 35 melee attack. Holy shit. That actually makes them a pretty damn cost-effective choice against the Warriors of Chaos. But they are cutting through my Chaos Warriors, backed up here with Belegar, and it looks like the Dwarven Hammer teams are going to be coming in. A couple loose Horsemen throwing, and the double Exalted Hero is going to be trying to go after the cannons, which are defended by some Hammer teams. So here comes the Dwarven Hammers! You got the hammers out for the Ancestor Gods, and these Foul Heretics are going to be paying a bit of a price here, as they do get hammered pretty damn hard. Now, zooming back up, a little bit of a macro perspective, we do break off the cannon, which helps us kind of secure our balance of power advantage. Granted, one of my Exalted Heroes does break. Pretty unfortunate, actually. Really was quite surprised at the damage output of these Dwarven Hammers on the ground. Usually infantry aren't very good, unless they're like anti-large, halberd slayers against monsters, but they seem to do pretty okay in terms of like general damage output. Now, Warp Chicken's coming over, trying to get a little drumstick charge here on Belegar, but Belegar is going to be very tanky against Warp Chicken. Warp Chicken has generally terrible armor-piercing values, and on top of that, he does magic damage, so there's many things going against him for actually doing damage. But we pull in the Exalted Hero, or at least think about it, pull back at the last second, seeing that there were indeed Slayers there, so I didn't want to get caught in a bit of a Slayer situation. I'm like, why the hell am I fighting the Dwarves in their game? Let's go, let's pick some shit off, and basically clean up everything you can. And if you guys are playing against Dwarves, especially a really good Dwarf player like Yumai's, you're always going to want to clean up everything you can before you go for the Alpha Strike, because Alpha Striking Dwarves, even when they're low like this, is tough. They have high leadership. They want you to come in and grind that fight, and they want to unify their forces. But I had 30 Winds of Magic at this point. I had only casted one overcasted Final Transmutation this game, so I knew that there was certainly some witchcraft I had here in the back pocket. Exalted Hero up in the sky, 24 leadership on his way back in. Once that character gets back in, I'll be feeling a little bit more confident to committing to a big fight. Chaos Marauders getting in there for the Dark Gods, of course losing quite horribly in combat to the Hammer teams, although getting a couple of kills on their own. You can see there's the Horsemen do charge in, help a little bit, and Belegar is now taking a 1-2 punch to the Exalted Hero. Really good offensive stats. He does, of course, have 55, 460, and 55 for his respective offensive stats. And Belagar is actually terrified, which is strange. You'd think the ruler of Karakay Peaks would be above such things, but I guess he doesn't have like an irrational kind of bravery or anything. And I think that really is kind of how immunopsychology is justified. Like characters that either cause terror or have like these crazy, insane like ideologies or beliefs that make them immune to the psychology. I don't know. Like Black Orcs in terms of lore, I always wondered about them, like why they would be ITP. Anyways, Exalted Heroes here, going after Belagar. He's at -28. We get a nice little crunch there on the Dwarven King. And at this point, we are going to be pulling back, reforming ranks, and just looking for a good, proper engagement. I think I have some infantry coming back somewhere in the battlefield. Yeah, we have a chariot moving back in here. My goon squad just going to keep rolling around. The dwarves aren't unified, so we can go after the weaker pockets. And even a single Chaos Chariot is actually really devastating at breaking the dwarves here in the late game. The Dwarf Warriors here sitting at like 12 leadership there for a moment. A single chariot puts them down pretty low. Warp Chicken and the Exalted Hero moving in. We get a pretty nice base jam on them, and here comes the Exalted Hero. Nice little leaping attack. But I've seen a lot of people in this matchup use basic Feralman scores just to save money, but I really got to tell you, I do think the Exalted Hero is the far better choice. And if you can't afford Mark of Corn, it's certainly not bad. So I saw the Dwarves had a nice little pocket here. We use the Final Transmutation. It hits the Dwarf Warriors and the Slayers, but the way Final Transmutation works, if you can move out of the blob, you actually don't, the damage stops ticking. It's a little bit different than Soul Stealer, I think, but he was able to move out and avoid a lot of the damage, but nonetheless, it still does trigger army losses, and that is going to be it for the Dwarves. So well played, you mice. We played a series of games. I think we played 3 in total, and you'll be seeing all those replays coming up on the channel in order. And this one was certainly quite a bit of fun. This was the first game we played, and I really do like this build. And if it works against someone like Yumais, who are arguably one of the best dwarf players in the entire community, it's a build that has teeth. So I think that the horsemen are fine. Chariots, obviously, nothing like did crazy good value. But, you know, across the board, we had pretty decent performances. We were able to break the elite troops with falling back in certain losing engagements and overloading on other ones, like getting 3v1s against the slower Dwarven infantry. And Warp Chicken and the Chariots getting into the back line was also quite punishing. So, yeah, it was a fun one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that Chaos vs. Dwarf game. I think the next one coming up here in this series, oh man, I can't quite remember. I know we had an Empire Bretonia game, and then we had... what was the second match we played? Anyways, it's really, we had some amazing games, and this was only the first of the 3. So you guys will see those sometime in the next few days. Thanks again for watching. Take care of yourselves and avoid Nurgle's Plague. Cheers.